So today I'm joined by Ellen and Jack. How are you guys both doing today?
Good.
Good, thanks.
Alive.
How are
Yeah,
you?
I'm all right. I'm all right. Are you guys at all affected by the fact that it gets really dark really quickly now at this time of year?
Yes.
Because
I just saw somebody post something about this.
did
Yeah.
you?
Luckily, it doesn't. Yeah, it's sort of seasonally affected depression. That's what it's
Yeah,
called, right?
yeah,
It's never really impacted me too much, but I definitely see why it could. Why it does impact people. I think of people in that live in sort of Sweden and Norway that
I know, right?
there's some parts of the year that barely have any
Yeah.
bloody sun. It must be
Even
awful.
even Scotland is worse than like us down here. In,
True.
like
Yeah.
even they don't
I
get enough
just remember
sunlight.
being I just remember being told that Iceland in the winter gets 1 hour of sunlight a day.
It's
And that
crazy.
absolutely blew my mind. And I was
Yeah.
just like, God, I struggle with it
Yeah.
getting dark at 4 p.m.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd be able to survive in Iceland.
It's probably not even proper
Yeah.
sunlight either. I imagine the sun's really low, so like they don't
Yeah.
really.
Yeah.
It's not really like bright sunshine or anything. Anyway,
Does it affect you, Brett? Does it affect you?
I feel like it has been more this year because I
Right.
don't know why.
I
To
think
be
it's been a
honest,
crap year.
it has been a crap year anyway. Yeah,
Yeah.
but I'm just noticing it way more. It feels like at 4 o'clock it's getting dark, and it's just.
Yeah.
I grew up in France as well, in
It
the
makes it
southwest of
difficult to do
France.
some
And
stuff as well.
yeah, it
Oh,
does.
fancy.
Sorry, yeah, like walking the dogs and yeah, you got to slip that in the
No,
conversation.
I was just gonna say that
your
it didn't.
posh French upbringing.
I was just gonna say that it doesn't get as dark there as soon. So like, it's even more weird for it to get so
Yeah.
dark at so early. But anyway, go on.
No, I was gonna say we usually like walk the dogs at sort of like 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and then it starts to get dark, so you can't do it. So you
Yeah,
have to like schedule everything to do lots of things earlier, and yeah, it's weird how it impacts your day. But no, not too much like the mental health. But I think this year, like you said, has been much more difficult for people mental health wise, and I've definitely felt a lot more fatigue this year than I have usually around this time. Actually, if anything, feel
yeah,
quite sort of like bubbly and like looking forward to Christmas and stuff. We were just talking beforehand about Christmas this year, but I think especially with this second lockdown, it has been a lot more difficult
hmm
for people. I know you wanted to get into this anyway.
yeah. I mean, might as well. Like, so Ellen, I contacted you before this, obviously, to ask like if there's anything you wanted to talk about in
You
particular.
did.
You spoke about that you had a mental health panel on mental health in journalism, right? Something like that.
Yes, last week. So the Society of Editors held a panel. Um, our tutors described it as a debate. It wasn't a debate. It was more about these people in the industry sharing their experiences, kind of within the industry and also in their personal lives. And I mean, some people found it insightful, some people not so much. I think it just kind of depends what your stance and your own experiences with it. But it really got me thinking about one woman had said that actually some relatively traumatic things had happened to her in her life, and actually the work that she was doing in the journalism, like the long hours, the kind of lack of time for herself, actually kind of really exacerbated those feelings, and actually was one of the things that was driving her into the ground.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of got me thinking about my own experience with it. And I don't want to be that person that's coming on here and preaching, because I feel like it's not my place
Go ahead, please.
preach. But basically, whilst I was at uni, I think a lot of people go through different types of, I don't want to say battles, but like trials with mental health in all sorts of respects. And it really got me thinking about my second year, and cliche, went through a really awful breakup. Let's move on. But basically, it plummeted me completely into the ground. And actually, although it was pretty bad, like the rest of the year, my mental health kind of experience really kind of propelled me into student journalism, which is really odd. I know that that's
Right.
probably no sort of link there whatsoever.
What
But
were you studying at the time?
I did history,
Right.
so
Right. And then
love
after that, you
reading
decided
things
to
about
move into
dead people.
journalism.
Well, it was something different.
Yeah.
Because actually, the breakup happened in the autumn. I'm not a massive fan of autumn. It's getting darker earlier. It's getting colder. It's not fun. And there was a girl in my class who was on the committee for our student newspaper, and she just spoke to me about it, and I was just like, you know what, there are things that I want to write and talk about, and mental health is something that still, although there is a much wider conversation about it now, mental health is still kind of stigmatized throughout society. And I ended up writing a fair few pieces about mental health because the paper had a mental health section, and it was kind of, it sounds weird to say, but it was kind of oddly comforting knowing that I was able to put these sort of topics out there, and not be stigmatized to them. People would be like, oh yeah, I can relate to this as well, and kind of know that you're not alone in the situation, because for a long time I felt massively isolated by everyone around me. Like, it was the first time in my life that I ever felt like I was cut off from anything. It really fractured my relationship with my family, and it just wasn't nice to see. And I don't know, this is, it's not graphic, but basically I'm a relatively normal sized human being. In the space of 6 weeks, I lost 2 stone and went down to 7 stone, which is a big thing for a girl of 5'5". It's not much. I'm not tall in any sense of the word, and it really sort of damaged my relationship with food, and kind of those around me. And it's something that I thought I understood before, and then going through it realized that actually sometimes people, they talk about mental health and they've not experienced it for themselves, and it was horrible. It was awful. And yeah, it's thinking about it now, it was a pretty tough time, but it spurred me to do other things and look for other avenues to kind of distract myself, because unfortunately I was the person that had to go to counselling. I managed to get on the Steps to Wellbeing course with the NHS. Right. And once basically you're put on a wait list, and they kind of assess how serious the situation was, and they obviously thought, from what I had told them, that I kind of needed the attention and was lucky to get on it relatively quickly. But unfortunately for me, the counselling just brought up all of these repressed feelings from when I was a teenager, and self-loathing set in. And for me, it just wasn't the right experience, the right avenue to go down. But I would never knock it for someone else. But it really, looking back on it with hindsight, it actually really kind of pushed me to do other things at university. I would get out of my comfort zone, to start writing. I'd written before, when I was a teenager, write my own short stories or whatever. And I was really massively into English. I was massively into history. I love books. I love TV and film. And I just thought, you know what, just take a punt. And I don't know if this is nepotism, but the friend who was a section editor for West 16 at the University of Southampton, rep. Sorry.
Rivals of us.
Oh, you Pompey.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
I thought I had enough rivalry with my brother. You're shit at AU sports. Losty. Sorry.
We can't get into the Portsmouth Southampton debate, because that will take up the entire.
That could be a whole other podcast.
Yeah, we should do that.
I think let's schedule that in. But yeah, there were good and bad to come out of it. But what it kind of made me realise, especially this panel last week, was the fact that actually journalists, although you see a lot of people who are in this industry, and there are some people who are more vocal about it than others, actually the industry is still not as accepting or is tackling it in the way that it needs to. And I mean, I don't know what your opinion is on this, but I think that just general kind of companies and industries really need to realise that actually there are people working for them. They're not robots, they're not machines. They have feelings, they have thoughts. And also bad things can happen to people, and especially this year, 2020, has just thrown a massive spanner in the works for everyone. It's made people redundant. People are working from home. Obviously, we've spoken about, the lack of social interaction. And during this first lockdown, sorry. Oh God, it's sad to say we're in lockdown 2.0. I knew a fair few people who, they were okay. they were dealing with it. And I was very fortunate. Unfortunately, I lost my job, but I was fortunate I live at home and didn't have to worry about a load of other things. But it didn't really save me from my own mind, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
I sat in the same room for 3 or 4 months looking at the same walls.
Yeah.
Not really doing much else because you couldn't. I tried to, get into exercise and do whatever. Was doing my Joe Wicks 5 days a week, but it just wasn't working. And I think what people really need to realize is that mental health in certain types of industries, or most industries, still go on. And now going into the world of journalism, it's kind of making me think about how I felt at uni. I felt a little bit out of my depth. I felt a little bit alone. And I think that if I didn't have, the option to go into the office twice a week and learn, I don't know what I'd be doing. I think I'd be in a lot worse position now than I would be if I was going. But
yeah,
it's a contentious topic for sure. But it needs to be spoken about.
I really appreciate you. Yeah, for sure. I really appreciate you sharing that with us, and I think it's really important that everybody, especially young people, get together and talk about their experiences, because we all have some kind of mental health, right? It's not something that we catch, bad mental health, or we catch anxiety. It's something that we all have, and we need to discuss how we manage it. And I can kind of sort of understand your sentiments about university, because I went through exactly the same thing. And the reason Brett and I met, we met in third year, and I moved into quite a big shared accommodation that Brett was living in the year before, and I lived in the same house for first and second year with 4 friends, and just wasn't particularly happy with my university experience. And it was, for the first time in my life, kind of like you said, I kind of struggled to make really concrete, solid friends in first and second year, something that I had never struggled with in my life. Felt loneliness for the first time in my life. So you're struggling with all of these feelings for the first time and having to grapple with them whilst undergoing your degree, which is something that I'd wanted to do. I knew that I'd wanted to do since I was like 13, 14 years old, was go to university, and working independently for the first time. And not really wanting to speak to anybody or reach out about it, because you want to convey that you're having this amazing time. It's university, the best time of your life, not reaching out to people. And then, so having to grapple with that. And that spurred me on to, move to a different place that was closer to the uni, and ended up meeting Brett and Alex, who edits our articles, and my girlfriend. We met in the same house, and that decision to move on led to all these amazing things happening, and essentially like going a long way to put me on the right path to kind of deal with my mental health struggles as well. So I think it's a couple of things. It's really important to talk openly about these things when people are comfortable, share their experiences, because we all go through them in some way or another. And even people who you'd never think would go through really tough times mentally, maybe grappling with something. But also, like you say, there's still a lot that needs to be done. So I'm interested to know your thoughts about, maybe if you're comfortable talking about it, about the counselling, and not so much, your sessions personally, but the system in general, how well you think that works, what we need to do to kind of fix it, and then maybe a bit more about the workplaces. What can workplaces do to support people more?
I think going back so I left uni 3 years ago. So the experience that I'm talking about was 5 years ago. So things have definitely changed within that space of time. So I am very happy to be proved wrong that things have advanced, because it feels like a long time ago, but also it feels like yesterday. The Steps to Wellbeing program, basically I went to see the university's doctors, and they either have, so at our uni we had like enabling services, and they offered kind of not counselling sessions, but you could go in for a walk-in session, and it was kind of one of those things that wasn't structured, and I kind of felt that wasn't for me initially, because I just didn't want to be that one person that goes in, they don't really care about or listen to, and then just be let go and left to my own devices. So I went to the NHS, and the Steps to Wellbeing program was 6 weeks, so 6 1-hour sessions in consecutive weeks, and I had to go to this. God, thinking about it, I don't know if you've ever been to Southampton, but there are some pretty, not nice
Unfortunately, I have,
places. Yeah. Before I used to go. But I went to a GP surgery near to where I lived, and I remember going to speak to this woman, and she must have been late 50s, early 60s, and trying to speak to her. Although yes, she was empathetic, I really didn't feel that she understood what I was going through as kind of like a young woman and as a young person. And I think that's actually something that we need to kind of we need to get people that kind of understand our position and are not
I
looking
agree.
down on you as a parent, because I kind of spoke to my mum about the situation. Well, yeah, she knew I was upset. My parents knew that something was wrong. My dad just kind of ignored it because, no offense, I think men can be like that sometimes. They just, if they're not paying attention, it's not happening. And also, I don't feel like he'd probably be comfortable talking to me about it. My dad's a very stoic, rational human being. And once the six weeks was up, basically they turned around to me and said, you can't apply for this program anymore. It's done. But you can go and get some more help if you feel that you needed it. And at the time I felt, yeah, maybe I should. And then she turned around and told me how much it was going to cost. And as a student I worked during the holidays. I didn't have a full-time job when I was at uni.
Yeah.
Full-time, part-time job even. And I just couldn't convince myself that £30 per hour was going to be worth my time in the end, because I had other things to worry about. It is a lot of money, and I think to any regular student it's a lot of money, especially if you're just not given money by very kind, generous parents. So that was a massive massive put off for me. And there were times when after that I'd called Samaritans, I'd called Nightline, which was a student service which was run by students, which was kind of the same thing as Samaritans. You can call them, you can kind of just like vent or talk about your problems. They are very understanding, and they do kind of point you in the way of professional help, but sometimes it's just not enough. And it led me to go back to my GP, explain the situation, and he was like, okay, let's just try you on some antidepressants. And I thought, okay, we'll try see what happens, because I definitely met people who'd said that finding the right one for them worked. So I went on what is commonly known as Prozac. I can't remember the official chemical name. For about a month. It was like around Christmas time. And I remember just going back after the new year, around exam times, and I was just like, I'm not feeling anything. I'm not feeling any better. And I felt just really impulsive. And I'm kind of an impulsive person. I'm not saying I'm like a massive risk taker. I'm not going to go bungee jump off a bridge. But it really made me kind of just be really productive and write lists for things to get done. I never write lists. Never. It was weird. I was very much, I'm one of those people that kind of, go with the flow, see what happens. But I was trying to pick myself up and do these things, and I didn't know where it was coming from. But unfortunately, those particular drugs didn't work. Moved on to a new one, and basically, I'm a bad sleeper anyway. And I can be up all night until 4 o'clock in the morning, and then have to get up at 7 or whatever. I feel shit for it. Don't get me wrong. I needed my sleep, and the next course of antidepressants, they were supposed to help me sleep, and it was great because they'd knock me out like within an hour. But I'd wake up and I'd feel like I'd have a hangover and not have gone out.
Right.
And
how often did you have to take them? What's the
every day? Every day. Yeah. So these ones were at night, and they were kind of more to help me sleep, and it was all right. That was want to say like 2, maybe 3 months worth on those. But then it kind of got to the point where it was actually my mood and what was going on with my sleep was really impacting my work.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I was a swot at uni, but like, you know, I went to as many lectures as I could if I wasn't dangerously hungover, or sometimes I even went dangerously hungover. It's the typical thing to do. But I was missing really important things, and it was affecting kind of working relationships with my friends around me. In second year at Southampton, for history students, you have to do a group project, which is kind of like a mini dissertation, but there's 8 of you in a group. And I'd be missing working sessions for them. And I was, you know, I just wasn't pulling my weight as much as I should have been. And it kind of made me, you know, sort of buck up my ideas. And, you know, I really needed to sort my shit out. That's what I really needed to do. But it did take a while. And I can never knock the NHS, because I think it's a great system that we have, and I think we as the UK take it for granted massively. I know people that work for the NHS. I've seen what this year has done to them, not only stretch their resources, but you know how they don't get pay rises again. And for me it just didn't work, and I think the only other option was to go back to uni and find some sort of help. And I remember going into one of these walk-in services. I think I went to one, and it was kind of exactly as I had imagined. I'm not saying it's like this at every university, I'm sure it's all different, but I went in, spoke to this woman, and kind of had the similar conversation to the previous woman. I think this woman was a bit younger, she must have been in her 30s, but it still just didn't feel like I was kind of breaking through and talking properly about it.
How long was that session? Do you know? Or do you remember?
The latter one.
The walk-in
I want to say between half an hour and an hour. Could be wrong.
That's just not enough time to talk to somebody about their issues. That's not nearly enough time.
No, exactly. And I mean, I was going to the doctor, and I feel like I got very pally with the doctor, you know, see you in 3 weeks' time or whatever. And I've never been one to go to the doctor really ever in my life. And I was finding myself going to the doctor way more often. And I kind of got a little bit of a complex about it. I was just like, am I just coming here way too often? Am I overthinking things? And I'm just naturally one of those people that overthink everything. So that didn't really help. And I got massive anxiety. I'm not an anxious person normally. I was getting massive anxiety when I was going out on nights out and seeing the dreaded person that was triggering all of these memories. And also because we had a very fractured relationship after that. Basically, the relationship was fine and it went really bad after we split up. It was gross. It was horrible. I never want to experience anything like that again. But he wasn't nice to me. It was really, really bad. And because I kind of lost my friends to him, I had to find a new group of friends. And actually, the distraction and these new opportunities that I was throwing myself into and these new friends really helped me through it. And it's a real testament to them as people that, you know, they put up with me all these years and they still put up with me. But it shouldn't have been like that for me, because there might be someone in the same situation who it's just not working for. And I think going to the uni, again, I don't know what Southampton is like at this point, but you're right, an hour is not enough to talk to people. And as far as I'm aware, at the time they didn't have any sort of schedule system where you could go and regularly talk to them if you really needed it. I think it was a case of they'd be like, go talk to the doctor because they're the ones that can give you this help. But I think it just shows that, you know, unis need to be more prepared. There's however many thousands of people in these universities going through different things. I mean, really horribly, a girl I went to school with went to uni at Manchester. Great, lovely girl. And she developed an eating disorder, and it was very bad. I mean, she was a normal sized girl, and I mean, I thought losing 2 stone was bad until I saw what happened to this girl. And it spiraled, and her story is her own story. But I feel like if people or uni system, like the uni people, had kind of caught it earlier on, or knew something was going on and tackled it in the right way, maybe it wouldn't have been that way. But we never know.
Yeah,
It's difficult, isn't it?
it
Yeah,
is.
it's difficult. But I think the overriding thing from what you're saying, I think, is that the whole thing needs, yes, resources and funding and organising, but there seems to just be a lack of humanity. It needs sort of like the whole system needs humanising. It seems really cold and not warm, and you're not sitting down and really connecting with somebody that seems like they really want to um help you with your problems, and that's what it seems to me. And I, again, really appreciate you sharing your story, and I think it like you said, it's a testament to your friends. It seems like you've come a long way, and it's a testament to you that you've got through all of that stuff. And what we spoke to Dr. Simon Rowbottom about a lot of this stuff, didn't we, Brett? And about the system in general. And that's kind of the thing that he said, that we've misinterpreted mental health in a lot of ways because we haven't mental health practices, and the impacts on people's mental health aren't at the same point. We're still thinking about mental health back in like the 70s and 80s. We're not thinking about it today and how people's mental health is being impacted today, and that's what we need to do. We need to catch up, and that kind of seems to me that where a lot of the problem comes from.
I think it's pretty obvious when you look at unis in particular, because it just I mean, I knew all three of us here experienced mental health issues at uni, and I know plenty of other people that I went to uni with, that we went to uni with, who did as well. And I know that even at Portsmouth, there wasn't that they had sort of the sort of front cover of, we have mental health resources and help. But when you really, my girlfriend at the time went and used them, and she never, always dreaded them, never spoke highly about it. She had I think she had recurring sessions every couple of weeks with somebody at the uni for a limited amount of time, and she never felt like she connected with them, and that the person she was talking to kind of always brought it back to the same points, and they never really got anywhere. And then after that was done, that was that. There was no more help.
I think also what is a massive concern for mental health facilities, also, well, I think it's a student concern, or general people. I was having this conversation today with some girls in my class. Basically, mental health on the NHS is actually not that easy to access, and I think also that's what puts a lot of people off. And I remember this was, oh my god, 3 years ago. I kind of see how my mental health goes. It went in waves, and I graduated, but I stayed in Southampton and went through a pretty crap time. Had a crap job, hated it. Funnily enough, what we were talking about earlier about the sun going down early, I had a job which meant I worked 7 till 4. This was in winter time, so I didn't see sunlight for a week. That wasn't healthy.
Yeah, well, that sucks.
Yeah.
And I went to this mental health charity, and it's going to bother me that I can't remember the name, but I remember it was very, very near my flat where I lived. And I went in, and this time when I was talking about was kind of a lot more self-destructive behaviour. Actually, the first time was self-destructive, but in a different way, because it damaged my relationship with food. But this one was going out and doing a lot of things with substances that most people shouldn't do, and it was getting bad. And I liked having fun, and I didn't see an issue with it. And it was getting to the point where actually, again, this was impacting on my job. It wasn't, I wasn't at uni and I could bunk off a lecture. I could be sacked for what I'm doing. And there were days I remember going out on nights out, and would go home, would stay up, have to go in for 7 a.m, and I would not be okay. It's actually embarrassing thinking about it, and how much I kind of lacked that care for the job, because there's no way that I never thought I'd treat a job like that. I can dislike jobs, fine, but I didn't think I'd have that little respect for the place that I worked in. And this person I went to go see at this charity, I was trying to explain to her, again, it was a woman who must have been about 60. And I had to explain to her what some of these illicit substances were. She had no idea. And I was just like, you're literally a mental health counsellor. You must get people that come in with drug dependencies, addiction. And she had no clue. And that wasn't very helpful. And I was put on a list, kind of like most people are.
Yeah.
And this time I hadn't heard for 6 months, 6 or 7 months, which is pretty bad. So they phoned me about a month before I was leaving Southampton for good, and I was just like, it's too late. It's just way too late. And I think that's what the real issue is with the lack of funding and the lack of resources, the fact that this country seems to do things too late until people are on the brink of breaking.
Yeah, it's
so that was my issue.
Sure. I mean, I guess the hope really is that this pandemic has kind of shined a bit more of a light on how important mental health issues are, and that everybody is suffering with them. But also, I really hope it's shone a light on how little resources there are available to people, and how the resources that are available deter people from even trying to access them.
Not up to scratch, and it's embarrassing.
6 months ago, I would have shared that hope with you, Brett, and I would have said it's so warm. It's, this, I derive so much happiness and warmth from the community spirit that was about, and how everyone was coming together through lockdown, and that really we were going to build back better after the first lockdown, and we were going to have a new normal where everyone was caring about each other. It's gone completely out the window now,
Really?
and I would love it to be the case that we came out of this with a newfound care for our key workers, and not just applauding them on the doorstep, but really fighting for them to have a pay rise and have better working conditions and not have to work ridiculous hours and not have to wear bin bags as protective equipment. But we aren't going to do that, unfortunately, and I just think it's so sad that from all the stuff that we've seen over the past year, the leadership that we've had, the awful positions that so many people have been left in, that we aren't more enraged as a country at how we're being governed. And I think we can, we can get into some of the specifics of this, especially from the NHS point of view, but it covers almost every single industry. This lack of care, being poorly run into the ground, lack of funding, and it truly is disgusting. It really is. And it's, I know we would try and talk about the PPE procurement scandal that's going on. That's probably shone a light on it the most. That there is corruption and cronyism in absolutely everything that the government does and has done for the past 10 years. And I wish that I could share that optimism with you, that it's going to shine a light on all these issues and we're going to fix them. But I don't have that hope and optimism now, unfortunately.
I completely agree with you, Jack. Completely. It's how this. I don't think it was even the whole mental health discussion that got me thinking about this. It was just the lack of accountability that wasn't being taken, and the fact that I don't know about you guys, but I have friends who are nurses. I have friends who were forced to finish their medical degrees early to go and be doctors.
Really?
In the pandemic. Yeah, because they were forced. They were kind of fast tracked and thrown into things. I knew people who were nurses, student nurses, and they weren't getting paid to do like the coronavirus job that they needed to do, and it was mad. And it's just like, if the government doesn't care for the people they made everyone clap for weeks on end, then they're seriously not going to care about the people who are suffering the most.
No, I do agree.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's go on, sorry, bro.
I was just gonna say that I don't know if I have hope that the government will change anything, but I do think that as a society we're recognizing it more. And I especially think that young people are leading the way, especially given we've had people on here talk about mental health before. We've spoken about it ourselves.
Sure.
Ellen, you've come on, you've talked about it. We all know people that have spoken out about it to people as well, or we know people that are currently suffering. And I just don't think it's an issue that can be ignored. So if the government chooses to, then I think they will face some repercussion for it, because I don't think it can be kept quiet for much longer.
I agree, and I think that there are lots of people talking about it. Obviously, we are all the time, and there's lots of young people that are talking about it. But people need to be so careful that they aren't drawn into playing these similar games. I've seen in the past 2 weeks, particularly in Labour circles, people being drawn into these divisive games and discussions on issues that really have importance. They are, some important topics that people need to be discussing and debating. But like shutting down conversations and focusing on the tiny issues that really don't need to have time spent on them. Spend your time coming together and finding things to hold the government to account for, and look to people in power and hold them to account for. And I worry that we will fall into the same. Or some people will fall into the same trap of being divided over really inconsequential things and not focusing their time on things that are really important. But there is this sort of energy among young people at the moment to fight against these issues or fight for certain issues, and that's obviously great. And there is like optimism that can be taken from that. But I do also think that when it comes around to the next general election, and the only way that you can really have can we get that young voter turnout up around the level that it needs to be, and that will really be the sign for me as to whether there has been a change. We've seen it in the US. There was a massive voter turnout. Will we have that same thing over here? And whatever way the election ultimately goes, having more people participate and have their voice heard is where the direction should be. And hopefully we'll see that. And then people's wishes reflected in manifestos.
Mm-hmm.
I think like a pay rise for NHS workers polls ridiculously highly, and it hasn't been in a Tory or a government manifesto probably since the last time that there was a NHS pay rise.
Mm-hmm.
I think also what we need to be like really sort of mindful about is the fact that if people talking about mental health are going to be in main points in manifestos, there needs to be a clear-cut way that these things can happen and not just be spoke about and then just dropped as soon as people are voted in, because I think that's a massive thing for young people, is that they want to know that they are going to have that security, that if they are feeling crap, that they can go to the NHS and they can be listened to for as long as they need. And it's going to be, they're going to have that support and that foundation to fall back on. Because I think at the moment, it's all well and good you saying, yeah, we're going to invest in mental health. Well, what are you going to do? Tell me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, breaking taboos is all well and good, isn't it? And moving forward socially is really important. We need to do that as a society, break down these walls that are stopping us from tackling certain issues. But ultimately, as you say, that has to be reflected in policy, and we have to see governments, people in power, say, okay, we're going to take some action to tangibly impact that's going to tangibly impact people's lives. And so far, especially with mental health, we haven't seen that anywhere near enough.
But it starts with the breaking of these taboos.
It's very true.
Sure, it does, but we can't just break taboos for the next 20, 30 years without that being reflected in policy. And the important thing is that we direct our focus and our attention onto the breaking of these taboos and moving conversations forward, but also to government and say, how are you going to represent our willingness to move the conversation forward?
I think also that's what this panel last week was about, was the fact that there were these people in relative positions of power or authority within industry, and they're talking about it. Because I think if more industries kind of on a bigger scale rather than just individuals are talking about it, that will gain traction. It will gain attention from people
Yeah.
above them, and realize that actually mental health is not just that one person that's, you know, feeling blue and has a black cloud over their head. It's a lot of people, and it affects them in different ways, and everyone's gripes and trials are just as valid as each other. It's not a game of one-upmanship, and these things need to be talked about and addressed. And I think if we're talking about on an industry level, the things that they can do to kind of work towards that is implementing like occupational therapists or mental health professionals within their company, so their employees know that actually there's someone that they can rely on within the company.
For sure.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I completely agree.
Shall we move on? We were going to talk about another main topic, but I think we've run for quite a long time on this topic, so maybe we'll. No, that's all right. No, it was.
No, don't apologise. It's important.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
It was very interesting to talk about, but we can have you on again to discuss the other topic, which was history education.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really interested to talk about that, so maybe we can organise to have you on again if you're up for
sure.
it. So, first current events thing, we've already spoken about it a little bit. The current scandal going on around the PPE procurement. Over the course of the outbreak, the government has made a bunch of sort of controversial deals in trying to procure PPE for health workers around the country. An article in the Byline Times mentions that £364 million worth of protective overalls was bought, but only 432,000 were delivered to health and social care workers and services, which
it's
it's
crazy.
ridiculous, because that
Yeah,
means
I saw this article too.
It's crazy.
One piece of PPE would cost £840 in that case. So the question is, where's all that money gone? Because it doesn't cost that much. And where
to the pockets of the people that have started these businesses.
Exactly. The Byline Times continues and talks about how the government's been forced to admit that some of its deals haven't produced the goods. It gave the firm called Ayanda Capital a contract which meant that they were supposed to supply £252 million worth of face masks, but over half of them weren't even fit for the NHS. So I'm assuming they've
when you see pictures like on Twitter of healthcare professionals putting up like pictures of what, you know, what they've been given, and you're just like, like you can literally go downstairs and put on a bin bag and it would probably help you as much as that.
Sorry, it goes on to say that approximately £180 million worth of PPE contracts have gone out to individuals linked with the Tory party, including the firm that ran the Conservative social media campaign in the last election, and
I saw this.
and a company co-founded by a former colleague of Dominic Cummings, who was also the co-author of the Conservative manifesto in the last election. It talks about how around £52 million worth of over around £52 million went to a firm to produce hand sanitizer. That firm has been dormant since 2017. And then it goes on and on. There are a variety of other examples, and I think I even saw something today as well that propped up earlier in the BBC.
Yeah, there's two really good resources that I would suggest that everyone goes and really deep dives into, because I think this is such an important issue and it's getting nowhere near the amount of coverage that it should be. Like, this is in my opinion, this is a major scandal during a pandemic when tens of thousands of people have died. The lives of so many other people have been affected in numerous ways. People have lost their jobs, you know, people can't feed their kids, etc., etc. The government is shilling out hundreds of millions, if not billions of pounds worth of taxpayers' money to their pals who have started businesses or who run businesses with no history or experience in PPE creation or distribution.
I saw something earlier that links into what you just said. I'm trying to find the article, and it's this Spanish fashion designer that has bought, I think he invested in, he had links with China, like factories in China, so he thought about he was producing gloves for governments to give out for PPE, and he was given, I think it was like 25 million euros by
I think it was dollars.
By the government.
$25 million, I think, yeah.
Sorry, wrong currency. To produce that, but it was like not all of them got delivered. Something similar. I'm trying to find the article.
Yeah, and it's happened. This has happened so many times. So there's the Byline Times articles and the Byline Times coverage which have been absolutely outstanding on this issue, and also Sophie Hill, who I believe is an Oxford doctorate student, I believe, PhD student, created an interactive map called My Little Crony, and it is absolutely.
I love it.
It's fantastic. Go and deep dive into it. Do a lot of reading. It looks a bit conspiratorial, but it's really interesting and really informative, and shows you how far spread this corruption is. And it doesn't just cover this issue. It's so many other issues or so many other things that have happened in the past sort of year, 2 years in government have been linked to these individuals, and it's pretty shocking to see it kind of laid out before you. If there is an inquiry, hopefully there will be an inquiry after all this has passed and we have a vaccine. This needs to be one of the main focuses, because I'm literally lost for words over how awful it is.
Why do you think it's not being covered in the media as much as you'd expect it to?
I don't know, really. I mean, I know about it because I think they covered it earlier on in the year. But reading it myself, I don't know why. But to me, it looks like the media are trying to protect the government from any more sort of outrage. But these things should be pissing people off beyond belief. Because if you were finding out that they're shelling out 25 million pounds, dollars, whatever, to a friend who's not delivering on resources when they're preaching about, protecting the NHS in more than one way, it's ridiculous. Like, where is this money going? It should be going to, I was about to say the war effort, not the war effort, the pandemic effort. Sorry, history graduate in me wanting to say the war effort. It should be going towards the institution that they're preaching about, because at the moment they're kind of digging their own graves, and I really hope that at one point it catches up with them, because this can't keep going on. We can't keep living in a world, or in a society even, where the people at the top generally, I'm saying generally, not all of them, seem to be middle-aged or later-aged white men in positions of power that have either they've got them through family or they've been handed to them through nepotism and cronyism, and they're the ones making the decisions and not seem to understanding where why this stuff is important. Like, we're trying to save people, we're trying to save people's jobs, livelihoods and lives, and paying companies which have obvious political affiliations is just damaging to their reputation.
And dangerous, and actually dangerous. Yeah, it's their corruption is actually putting lives at stake. That's the bottom line, and there needs to be repercussions because of that. We have a government that is putting people's health at risk for their own vested interests, and that just isn't acceptable. It shouldn't be acceptable. It doesn't matter what party it is. It's not a political issue. This is corruption, and it needs to be called out. And it's not being called out by a lot of people on the left and a lot of people on the right, and it boggles my mind. Like you say, I don't know necessarily why it's not being covered as much as it should be. The sort of tinfoil hat Jack wants to say that it runs deep, and there's lots of people that don't want to talk about it, but I don't necessarily believe that that's the case. Lots of important issues get pushed to the side for things that seem a bit sexier. It's a really difficult and complex thing to cover, and you can't really cover it in like a 15-minute BBC segment, and they have spoken about it somewhat, but not maybe to the extent that they need to be. Plus, the government don't like doing interviews, do they? So you can't really talk to them about it too much, because they won't go on any show that
Mhm.
that gives them a proper question.
What they should be doing is talking to people in hospitals, but they're also being told not to talk to the press. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm yet to reach out to some of my nurse friends and see what's happened to them, because I'm really interested to know if they've been told, if you're
It-
approached by a journalist, don't talk to
it
them.
makes you wonder if the reason that they're being told not to talk to the press is because they will just talk about how they've not got enough PPE, or the
For
PPE
sure.
they do have is of such poor quality. Because I remember hearing
Yeah.
from in the press, but also from individuals back at the beginning of the year when the outbreak broke out, where the hospitals were struggling then to give out enough protection to people. So it makes you wonder if that's just still the case. But
I also don't know about you guys, but that sounds really bad, and I know we're bashing the government, criticizing whatever, but I'm not surprised. I'm just not surprised that this has gone on, and I think that's it just shows how much lack of faith that I have with this government. And I'm not saying that a Labour one or a Lib Dem one or whatever would be better,
mhm.
but this is just typical. Like, they're playing the politics game and not really thinking about what they're doing.
The point is, I think, that you don't
Yeah.
have to make a comparison to other parties at all times when something bad happens, or when somebody in
No,
power
of course you don't.
makes
Yeah.
these kind of mistakes.
Yeah,
And
they're
it's a
the
massive
government at
mistake.
the end of the day.
Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
in
You should be
power.
able to hold the government to account.
Exactly. Yeah.
Honestly, I would happily tell Boris Johnson where to fucking go. Well, pardon my French, but seriously.
So do you something that I've been thinking about the past couple of days now, Dominic Cummings has gone, do you think that the governance will change in any way
You've
or
moved on
not?
to the next
I
topic
think it
without us
might.
even prefacing.
Sorry.
Jump the gun. I think it will change. I definitely think it will change. It just depends who goes in. This is a little number 10 insider goss. So there is a graduate of the journalism school that I'm at that went to go work for Boris Johnson.
Oh.
And he
wow.
worked, fun. So he was a
Demographic
journalist and he
exclusive.
was doing, I know, and he came at this, I don't know if I can reveal names, so we'll keep him anonymous,
Yeah,
but
yeah, for sure.
person X
Yeah,
came
yeah.
in and he was having a chat with us, and someone asked him, does Dominic Cummings have as much power as the media make it out to be? Because I'm not gonna lie, until last year, maybe May, June time last year, I actually hadn't heard of Dominic Cummings that much, mainly because I was away for a year and I just thought, I'll ignore British politics. I'm on the other side of the
Lucky
world.
you.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I literally came back in May last year, and there were local elections going on. My friend was like, "Have you registered to vote?" I was like, "I've literally just landed back in the country. I don't give a shit." But this person X was saying that actually he doesn't. People think that he does, and they like to play on the fact that he's actually quite a reprehensible character. He doesn't seem to kind of give a crap about what people think of him, but not necessarily in a good way. And the way he holds himself and has conducted himself is a real turn off for people. And I think that's true. I mean, I think actually when you look at Boris Johnson, he can be quite a reprehensible character for some of the things that he said, especially about women, about Muslims, gays, black people. I could go on. But also what kind of won him the mayor election back whenever it was that he was kind of a lovable, kind of Trumpy character where he was kind of seen as harmless, but now not so much. I think government will slightly change. I think it depends what happens when we come out of this next lockdown, if we come out of it, how they conduct themselves going forward, and whether, if the next senior advisor just decides to drive to Barnard Castle to test their eyesight, and whether they're held to account this time.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to note,
Yeah.
I think, that two
Yeah.
senior advisors of Boris Johnson were left last week. Surely that's going to have a pretty big
Yeah.
impact, right, on how the government's run from now on?
I think so. I think especially what it's
see-
going to look like from a public point of view. I mean, who knows what goes on inside Number 10? But I think we'll see who's chosen in next, and see if they are going to make an active change, one that's actually noticeable. Because I think if the government doesn't make like a clear course of action for anything, we're just going to lose faith even more. But I think it just depends on who he chooses, and if Harry Simmons has as much sway over Boris Johnson as the media are letting on, who knows? She could be running the country next.
Yeah, it could be her job. Yeah, no, I think it will have a important. I think it will have an important impact because, like you said, and I think this is the key part. He has changed the way he has governed and the way that he has wanted to be perceived based on who he has around him. I don't necessarily know if Boris, he obviously has some views and values. He wants to be liked. He wants to be in power. I don't really know. I think he kind of just sways in whichever direction the public want him to sway, and that keeps him relevant. So I think the people around him clearly do have the ability to push him in a direction. And I think Dominic Cummings has shown that anywhere that he's been, he has had an impact. He has had an influence. So we saw it in during the Brexit campaign, in a massive way. We saw it in the general election. They had the ability to have this like populist kind of aura around them, and it worked quite well. They focused on a few key issues. They hammered home these 3-word slogans, similar to how Trump got elected beforehand. Didn't actually talk necessarily about what they wanted to do too much, but just that they won. So I think, however, it will have much of an impact on the corruption element of things, to be honest with you. I think that will remain, because that always seems to remain in most governments, not just Conservative ones. I think that stuff will remain the same. But the direction that he moves in a policy, from a policy point of view, I think will change. And hopefully there's a little bit more transparency and less chaos, because that seems to be the overriding theme with wherever Dominic Cummings is, that it's pure chaos, and no transparency or accountability whatsoever.
No, of course, and I think the Barnard Castle incident earlier this year really just shows. Actually, I think, I'm sure he did take the job very seriously, but obviously not serious enough that he thought that his actions as a senior government advisor would actually affect public opinion, but also public opinion towards him and the job that he does. Because I remember they were saying, although he's not a like a scientist or a medical professional, he would sit in on SAGE meetings, and it kind of had this looming sense of, does he actually know what he's talking about? Like, why is he there?
Yeah, for sure.
I heard.
Oh no, go.
I was listening to LBC at the weekend, and one of the presenters saying, it's terrible now that people are focusing on government advisors. Government advisors shouldn't be news. We shouldn't even know who Dominic Cummings is. And I think the complete opposite. I'm so happy now that people are focused on who has influence in Number 10. I'm really happy that people want to know who are the people surrounding the Prime Minister, who are the people that are involved in decision makings, who are the weirdos that are sat in on SAGE meetings, acting as if they're on the same plane as actual scientists. I think it's a really important thing, and I hope whoever replaces him, we have the same scrutiny on them, and hold them to as higher standards. What I also wanted to say was, people like Dominic Cummings, people like Boris Johnson, like to portray themselves as being men of the people. They're really in touch with working class people. They don't give a shit about working class people. Just like you said, the whole Barnard Castle incident, they have contempt for people below them. They do not want to be held to account. They want to be able to get on with doing whatever they want to do. Ensure that their rich pals stay nice and rich. Ensure that nothing gets done to actually impact your life in a way that makes it any better. And ensure that they can stay in power. And that's what the focus needs to be on. With people like Dominic Cummings the government at the moment, like make them do something that helps you and helps move your life forward. And then if they don't do that, hold them to account at the next election. But let's remember all this stuff in 4 years' time when the election rolls around, because it's going to be really important. And I don't want us to forget how crazy it was that he remained in his post for so long.
For sure. Shall I move on to quickfire questions?
Sure.
Oh, I'm intrigued.
It's the best part of the week.
The quickfire questions. First one is, do you think we'll ever see another Trump in the White House?
Yes, undoubtedly.
Yes.
Do you think it'll be the same Trump, or do you think it'll be a different
I
Trump?
think he'll be dead
Not
by
necessarily.
then. No, new one. Maybe
So,
no, I
Donald
don't think John Jr. will get in.
Or Eric.
No, I don't think. I think people realise he's actually a massive
Or
cokehead. So
that's what I was going to say. Ivanka might be a possibility.
I don't know. Apparently, she was the one who was telling him to, concede and stuff. So I don't know. I think we'll see. I think, unfortunately, kind of like Hillary Clinton, her dad's reputation's not given her a very good reputation either. So I think she has to deal with that. So until she proves, or if any of them prove that they know what they're doing, they are not going to burn us everyone into the ground. Then maybe.
See,
might have a.
I think the opposite. I think their dad's reputation is what will get them into the White House. If any of them stand, they will have to lean on the fact that their dad was Donald Trump. I know it's crazy, but Trumpism is alive and well. It will remain to be alive and well over the next 4 years. Joe Biden will have to contend with this movement of Trumpists throughout the US. It's not going anywhere. And if one of them were to stand, they would be in with a shot. So, we cannot forget about them. We cannot forget about them.
Yeah, I wonder if they.
Yesterday, Trumpists.
I didn't hear any of that.
Jack's internet connection is dipping out.
Is my internet gone? Sorry, carry on.
Yeah, you're back now. You're back. What was it you said?
No, it's not.
Oh.
I'm wondering. See, on the one hand, I wonder if we'd have a Jeb Bush situation.
Maybe.
Really?
Yeah, or
maybe.
I can kind of if any of the Trump kids decided to run as slightly more together politicians than Trump, but with the same, but with Trump as we're still Trumps. We still believe in this, but we're with slightly more, what's the word?
I think that's totally possible. I think also what didn't help, apart
sanity,
from Donald Trump, apart from Donald Trump, being the wonderful human that he is. Oh God, hurts me to say that. I think what really kind of let him down, and I think if his children think about going the same way, is actually he's not a politician, and it just shows how inept he was at the job as well. So I think maybe if they were to think about it, they'd have to get into politics at a more sort of ground roots level before to build up their experience for them to even have a shot.
Again, we're talking about them being good presidents or good politicians.
That's a fair point.
Oh yeah. Sorry, I forgot they were Trumps.
We're not talking into power. I'm not fucking effective way. Just talking about them being elected.
Yeah. Sadly, I don't trust the American people that well. Sorry, Americans listening.
No.
My next question is, what's your favorite social media platform?
Instagram.
Yeah, favorite.
I
Probably
live
Instagram.
vicariously through. I live vicariously through other people. It's great.
I'm counting Reddit as a social media platform.
Okay, yeah, Reddit's my favorite then.
Okay, fair.
Reddit's my favorite.
To be fair, I'm not on Reddit because I don't think I'm brave enough to go into one of the. You remember back when you were 13 and you'd go on YouTube and you'd find yourself in a really dark corner of YouTube. I'm really afraid that I'm gonna end up like that on Reddit. But I do enjoy on social media, when I see on social media, the "Am I the arsehole" situations. They're my favorite. They're great.
They are good. I really like reading relationship advice. The subreddit.
Does it help you?
No, but it's just really interesting to see other people's crazy relationships.
I was gonna say, do you come across like really sort of obvious situations where you're just like, these people are fucked?
Yeah, it's
But
quite
they just don't see
nice.
anything wrong with their
Exactly. It's
behaviour.
quite nice to read these posts and think, my relationship's actually pretty good. These people are
Love that.
really not doing a very good job.
To be fair, I feel like I see
I
that in
think-
everyday life as well.
That's true. Yeah, that's true. I think Reddit's got the nicest community on the whole.
Yeah, you could
I think
definitely
that
find.
I think that other social media platforms are a lot more toxic.
Yeah, I agree.
Reddit has toxicity, but
True.
on the whole, Reddit's a lot nicer
But
community.
the nice thing about Reddit is that people tend to, as long as you know which subreddits to frequent and you're still skeptical of what people say,
Yeah.
generally people who are toxic are downvoted or removed because there are
Hey,
rules
and yeah,
to
exactly.
these subreddits.
Yeah.
So
Is the guy who co-founded Reddit that just gave up his share, is that Alexis Ohanian? Am I thinking of the same person? The one that's married to Serena Williams?
Hold on.
I have no idea.
Is it him?
Yes, it is.
It
yes.
is him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because like I like him and I like her. I think they're such a tremendous like power couple. So I can get on board with Reddit. I do need to kind of, I don't know if I need to, read more on Reddit. I'm worried that I'm gonna get myself into a situation. I'm just gonna freak myself out a
See,
little bit.
the thing, what I would say, I think I would probably, I like Reddit, I like using it, but I would say don't use it because once you start using it, you can't get off it. You just spend hours browsing.
High addiction factor.
Yeah. Browsing various subreddits, just looking at
Okay.
dogs being silly or whatever. So it really sucks up time. My next question is: if Johnson were to resign before the next election, who would you pick as your ideal candidate to replace him?
In the Tory party.
Yes.
For me, it's Rishi Sunak, and it's not even close.
Yeah,
Personally, I don't love
probably have
Rishi
to
Sunak,
agree.
but of all the candidates that there would be to be the next Tory leader, he stands out by far and away, in my opinion.
Are there no backbench Conservatives that really, I don't know, take your fancy?
Not
I'm
really.
trying to think of some.
I can't think of any.
Because I'm from I don't know about you guys,
that
but
would
I'm
want
like
to be
from
leader.
a Tory stronghold
Yeah.
where I live. So everywhere's kind of Tory, and like not the constituency that I'm in, but the one, like two right next door are Dominic Raab and Michael Gove. And I'm just like, great, these
Lovely.
people. But
Right,
I think I would have to agree with
you
Jack.
are
I
in a
think
really Tory area.
love it. I think I'd have to agree with Jack. Probably Rishi Sunak. I think only because I'm not saying that he, like, what happened with the pandemic was amazing, because obviously there was still work, but I think how he handled it very well. It could have been a lot worse. They could have been, they could have put someone in, dare to say it, like Michael Gove, who probably just would have floundered and just, not handled it as well as he could have done. I don't want to say I like anyone, but he has the charisma. He has, that sort of appeal to many people. Dishy Rishi, loving it. I think that would get him in. I know it'd be good though, so who knows?
I also think that he'd have a really good chance of winning an election as well.
Really?
For sure, yeah.
I think it would be a competitive election. If I'd like to see a Starmer Sunak fight it out.
I've not seen much charisma from Sunak.
I think I do. I mean, just from what he just reminds me of.
When you put it in perspective.
Yeah, I mean, sorry, I'm just thinking about when they do the briefings, and he would come on and he'd talk about it, and he'd just like call Boris Johnson "thanks PM," and I just remember seeing a meme where it was like Simon from the Inbetweeners calling
we've
Jack's
lost
gone.
Jack. Carry on.
Okay. Where the meme of when Simon from the Inbetweeners calls the head of sixth form Phil, and it's like it's the same thing, and it just makes me laugh a little bit. But I think also what kind of helps him is the fact that, I mean, he's probably not that much younger than Boris Johnson, but he just seems to be a little bit fresher, a little bit newer, and I think that's what people need. I don't think people are really going to want the same sort of, you know, been in the Tory party since forever and, you know, trying to climb the way to the top, which I think Boris Johnson really has. He, you know, back when he was mayor, everyone was saying he wants the Prime Minister's job, and that's kind of all his aim has ever been. And I think at the moment, Rishi Sunak is not going for that, but I think that might work in his favour.
I agree. I will say, however, I think it's going to be really difficult for the Tories to get elected in 2024. So I still do think that, personally, especially if things like we've got Brexit on, you know, we are literally hanging over the cliff edge, and a ginormous economic recession looming that will impact us for at least the next 4 years. I do, unless they pull something out their asses, I do think it will be really difficult for them to be elected. Again, I hope they are at least held to account properly, especially if Boris Johnson's the leader.
Yeah. Can you imagine a return of Theresa May?
No.
Yeah, that would be incredible.
she crashed and burned.
No, not a complete curveball.
The Maybot strikes back.
Yeah, exactly. Who knows? Maybe she's been reinvigorated during this period.
Yeah.
Maybe she's been running
good.
through fields of wheat.
Yeah. That's a picture I like to hold in my head of her at the moment.
Oh God, no.
After she's like, did you see it? She's been good as a backbench MP, to be fair, on some stuff.
She has.
It's good. Boris Johnson's just taken to just ignoring her and fucking off whenever she starts to talk. So.
I know. I thought that was savage. I just think that shows just how much lack of respect he has for people in his own party.
Yeah.
And I'm not sticking up for Theresa May sort of in any sense. I mean,
no.
She was dealt a very bad card, like a very bad hand with Brexit. And she obviously just wasn't ready for it. She wasn't ready for that authority. Yeah. And I think, I mean, the situation you were talking about when Boris Johnson walked out of the Commons, I just thought, what a fucking asshole. Like, this woman,
she deserves more respect, you know, than that. But also, like, the whole thing with her, you know, she was dealt a bad hand, and like she did apply for the job, you know, she kind of knew what she was getting into. Like, I think, do you remember when she cried when she left, when she stood down?
Yeah.
And everyone was like, "Oh, poor Theresa. Oh, it's so. You must be so heartbroken." Like, Jesus Christ, she's just the Prime Minister. She's overseen like austerity and the Brexit crisis and all this stuff. And you know, we're meant to be feeling really sorry for her that she botched it all up. Well, I don't feel sorry for her. She's the most powerful person in the country.
I don't feel sorry for her. Yeah, I mean, I don't feel sorry for her. I think she was completely inept. But like, I kind of think, like, in the grand scheme of things, I think anyone that was, you know, given the aftermath of Brexit, whether it was a Tory or a Labour leader, was, you know, it was going to be difficult for anyone. So I feel bad for her in that respect, but also you fucked it.
And you should like, as Prime Minister, it's a really, really bad look just to walk out on someone as they start asking you a question. So
thanks to you.
My next question is cotton or polyester?
In terms of what?
Just in general, you know, which do you prefer?
I don't know. I never look at how my clothes are made, bro.
You never look.
I can tell you're starting to struggle coming up with these quickfire questions now, mate.
Does it show?
Oh God. I'll say cotton only because
cotton feels so much nicer on your skin than
I can't see.
I can't see what it says.
I don't know what this is. No idea. Cashmere, Brett. Cashmere.
Cashmere's where, silk is where.
I'm all about reducing
I only wear silk.
plastic in clothing, so go for it. Because also, you're right. Like, cotton is so much nicer, but also I have a massive thing about. I'm not a massive fast fashion person. I try to be. I mean, I'm not totally ethical with my clothes. Like, I do like the odd spend at Urban Outfitters. I know, sacrilege if I'm preaching about the environment, but polyester, you're right, polyester just feels different, it fits different, and all of these fast fashion companies that push it are just contributing to a massive problem.
See, that was a good answer.
I like that. Totally, yeah.
Sorry, go on if you want to add?
No, I was going to say embrace secondhand shops, charity shops, Depop, embrace all that stuff.
Make sure
for
to wash whatever you buy there though before you wear it.
That's true.
Always wash your clothes, Brett. Not just when you buy it from a secondhand shop.
But it smells so nice when you get it from a new shop.
That's true.
Nah, not all the time. Do you guys remember like being 13 or 14 and Hollister like became a thing over here in England? They had that one shop in Shepherd's Bush, Westfield, and they would spray the entire like shop and all the clothes with the cologne, and I was just like, just inhale everything.
I wore that aftershave for years.
It's good aftershave, to be fair.
Yeah.
Abercrombie and Hollister. Awesome. I mean, companies are pretty fucked up, but like, they do good aftershave.
Anyway, my last question is: can you name the scientific name of any plant?
No. Simple answer.
Can I?
Go on, Jack.
It's I'll be honest. The initial plant that came into my head was cannabis, and I just didn't know what the name for it was. Is the scientific name for cannabis?
I don't know.
I'm gonna Google it.
Yeah.
Wait 1 second.
Because I would say there's lots of like made up names for it, obviously, but that would be the first one. Do plants have scientific names?
Yeah.
Yes, they do. They have Latin names.
Yeah.
Okay, wait 1 second.
Names, yeah.
Every species does of plant or animal.
This is true. Okay. I don't even know if I'm going to be able to pronounce it, to be honest.
Go for it.
I'm not right.
So, cannabis is a genus of flowering plant in the family Cannabisae, which is obviously spelled in a Latin way. And then there's 3 that are recognised. So, cannabis sativa, cannabis.
Oh, sativa indica. And indica.
Yeah, indica and rudimentalis.
Huh.
Rudimentalis.
Interesting.
Yeah. I've never heard of it. Right. No, I mean, we have a fair amount of plants like in our house, and I've definitely seen labels.
You have some cannabis, indica, and sativa plants.
Oh no, sorry. That's not what I meant. Oh god, no. Oh god.
I feel like
I
went to.
So you just incriminated yourself on our podcast now.
Oh my god, no! Could you imagine?
There we go. We're gonna clip that.
Sorry. To be fair, I do know.
That'll be the promo.
I do know someone who's. I remember going around to this girl's house. She was a friend of a friend from uni, and they were from a really affluent part of London. And she lived in Islington at this really nice Georgian house. And I remember being at her house, and she was like, "Yeah, my parents grow weed." And I was like, "Where?
Wow.
Tell me." But no, I cannot name. Well, I can name now cannabis, indica.
Can you, Brett? Can you?
No, I can't. But I thought of the question and then thought maybe I should look one up first.
Who do you think I am?
But I was going to say, did either of you study like botany or like any sort of like science? No. So why would you ask a science question?
They all had scientific names. I knew there was the odd one that had a Latin name, but I didn't know they all had Latin
do.
Names.
Yeah. If you go, I went to Kew Gardens recently, and they've all got like little plaques with the little scientific name underneath, and I really should.
Well, you should know some then, shouldn't you, Brett?
Yeah, I should. But my point was,
you didn't come prepared.
No, see, I thought of the question, right? But I'm not gonna. I thought it would be cheating if I then looked one up just to come on and say, actually, I do know some. You guys don't, but
it's good though, because you should do that, and you should then educate us as to the names of plants. Because you came on a couple of weeks ago and asked, how is a crane built? And I didn't know, and you didn't know, and the answer was fucking fascinating. So you should have done some research. And then a crane, Ellen, it builds itself.
We're going to bring this up on every podcast
Wait,
now.
how? How does it build itself?
It has like the bottom bit and then a lifty bit.
Yeah.
These are the scientific names. And I'm an expert. And it lifts, it like grabs a bit of the crane and it lifts it up and slots it in, connects it, goes down, picks another bit up, lifts it up, slots it in, connects it. And that's how it builds itself.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Pretty crazy.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Oh,
do it.
No.
No, do it.
No, go ahead.
This is going to really lower the tone, kind of, dumb it down. What would you rather give up, cheese or chocolate?
chocolate.
Ooh. See, I feel like I have
Chocolate,
moods
easy.
where I have a mood for chocolate and a mood for cheese.
Answer the question.
I probably like
You
more
can't have
varieties
both.
of chocolate, so I'm going to say cheese.
Oh, he's French and he's given up
Interesting.
cheese.
That's good French chocolate as well.
Disgusting. Disgusting.
Nah.
Milka's the only French chocolate.
Is it?
It's Swiss. It's Swiss.
Yeah,
it's not
Milka
even
is
French.
Swiss.
And it's
Yeah.
not even French. It's not even French.
Oh, love that.
Wow. Anyway.
Oh, brilliant. Ellen, thank you so much for joining
Yeah.
us. I really
Yeah.
appreciate it. It's been
Thank
great
you.
having you on. And we'll have you on
Thank
again
you
and
for
we'll
having
try and fit some more
Definitely.
topics in.
Definitely.
I was going to say the other topic was very depressing, so maybe it's a good one to do for another time.
No, it's important. It's
We
important.
will talk about it. Because it's topical at the
Yeah,
moment as well.
for sure.
Sure.
Anyway, we'll talk about it next
Exactly. So relevant.
time. It is.
Fab.
Thank you very much, Ellen. And thanks, Jack.
Thank you.
Cheers. Thanks,
See you
Brett.
later.
Bye.
Bye.